You're on mute. Sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kim Stemshorn, and I'm the coordinator of the Smart Commute program at the City of Toronto. And I am delighted to be here today for the Live Green at Home series, the second of 3 cycling commuter series workshops. At the Environment and Energy Division, we deliver programs, grants, incentives, and resources to engage the community in helping to transform TO and to accelerate the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in Toronto. My program, Smart Commute, works to curb traffic congestion and reduce greenhouse gas emissions through the promotion of sustainable modes of transportation, such as carpooling, walking, cycling, and taking public transit. Active TO has been a major milestone in Toronto over the last year and a bit for supporting and prioritizing sustainable travel and exercise. Sustainable commuters in Toronto have enjoyed major road closures to cars, over 25 kilometers of new bike lanes added to our cycling network, quiet streets, and even bike lanes on busy Yonge Street. Before we begin today, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement to respect the land that we ride, walk, and drive on. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We'll be recording this workshop. We'll be taking questions throughout the presentation in the Q&A section on the side of your screen, so please enter your questions there throughout the presentation. We'll have time at the end of the presentation to chat with our guest speaker, and we'll answer your questions at that time. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Marvin Macaraig from Scarborough Cycles. Marvin is a health promoter and the Scarborough Cycles coordinator at Access Alliance. Access Alliance is a community health center supporting communities in Toronto that have been most impacted by the structural barriers. He works to increase suburban cycling by addressing barriers that prevent residents from living healthier and more active lifestyles. Marvin earned his PhD in geography from the University of Toronto and has expertise in both active transportation and civil society. Please join me in welcoming our wonderful guest, Marvin Macaraig. I'll pass it over to you, Marvin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. What is up? Thanks for being here. It's a great pleasure. Thank you for the kind and warm welcome, Kim and her team. You guys are terrific. It's like nice to talk to you guys. You guys are my tribe. This is our like-minded people coming together and talking about things that bother them and excite them. So I'm glad to be here. So today I'm just going to talk about a little bit of cycling in the suburbs. I hope there's going to be a lot of questions because I was thinking about your questions all throughout the day, and almost yesterday I was thinking what could be possibly asked. And I love answering questions because it's a topic that I'm very passionate about. And what we're going to talk about today is, hang on, here we go. There we go. Just double check. Okay. We're going to talk about, I'll give you a thumbnail about Scarborough Cycles, a little bit of the rules of the road. I'm not a lawyer by any speak, but I'll try to answer a few commonly asked questions. Route planning, equipment, and some resources and support, but all within the idea of suburban cycling. So yes, this stuff is applicable to urban downtown cycling in the core. It's applicable to rural riding. It's applicable to riding by yourself in the forest and on your mountain bike. But I'm going to keep in mind that some of the questions and our topic today is about riding in the suburbs. And before I start, like all these pictures that you see in the presentation, they're all real images from our programming. I always let people know they're not just Google search images, because some people will say, did that really happen? Yeah, it actually did happen. These are actually real images of our programs. Okay, so just a little bit about Access Alliance. So Scarborough Cycles is a program of Access Alliance. We are a community health center, and our vision really is to bring Toronto's diverse communities achieve health with dignity. Our model of care is primary care, illness prevention, health promotion, community capacity building, and service integration. And if you're not familiar with the community health center, it's just another way to administer healthcare in the province of Ontario. There's over 100 community health cares, community health centers in the province, and we all work together. If you guys are familiar with the blue H logo for a hospital, well, the stylized C is what community health centers are, and you can see it in that image. There's a little blue stylized C at the side of the building. Okay, so version by repairing bicycles that would have otherwise gone to scrap or landfill. We provide opportunities for reuse, share, and repair items, and offering skill training and creating job and economic opportunities. Our ongoing kind of like long-term goals are building bike culture in Scarborough, creating and disseminating new knowledge about cycling in the suburbs, and building capacities about amongst like local agencies. And how do we do it? We do this by mainly addressing barriers, and we engage with like different stakeholders and residents on the benefits of improved cycling infrastructure. So when I'm programming, when I'm creating cycling programs, um, I'm mindful to focus on both the individual and population health. So cycling can improve individual health in many ways, and I think by now the research is pretty conclusive. Maybe you couldn't say this a few decades ago, but if you ride more and you walk more, the chances are you're going to be more healthy. So embedding cycling into everything that we do as healthcare professionals is just a no-brainer for us. Improving well-being of your community also falls within the domain and scope of my work. We want to encourage clients to be more active. We want them to take advantage of the benefits that come from cycling. And the safety of cyclists and pedestrians is also a public health issue. If it's not safe to walk or ride in one's community, then how safe is it to do any other things that we want to do in our community? So simply put, like a community with better options will also have better chances to improve the health of its residents. So when we launched our project in 2015, there were no community bike hubs in Scarborough. Now there are 3. Our bike hubs are places where bikes are the common denominator, but the focus is to really help people in their everyday lives. So why focus on the suburbs? Well, because this is not it's uh, it's because not everyone in Scarborough drives a car. You might think that if you live in Scarborough, North York, or Etobicoke, that everyone drives a car, but it's just not true. We know that's not true. Not everyone has a license in Scarborough. Not everyone has a license in North York and in other parts of the city. It's actually, we know that women actually don't have licenses as much as men in parts of Scarborough. So we focus on Scarborough because there's a high level of transit use despite having higher order transit. Suburbs represent a great opportunity to move the needle in terms of addressing reducing greenhouse gases, traffic congestions, or improving community health. This is where the work is. More people live in the suburbs. The population of Scarborough is over 600,000. The population of the downtown core is about 250,000. The landmass of Scarborough is big. It's like a third of Toronto. So if you want to move the needle, like I mentioned earlier, about greenhouse gases or converting trips into active transportation, you got to go where the work is, and we think it's in the suburbs, and we know it's in the suburbs. So why ride? So this is kind of like a 5-point thing. Well, reliability, it's economical, it reduces your carbon footprint, it's independence. That's the big thing for me. It's just like who wants to be tied to a transit app and looking at schedules all your time. You just want to finish your work, get up and leave. You want to meet friends at whatever time. You just want to do it. It's just independence. Health. I talked a little bit about that before. You're lower risk of dying from cancer, heart disease, and other causes. It's economical, and it helps the environment. We all know we're in a climate crisis that's affecting our planet. So this is part of things that we can do every day to help do our part. I think like when I first started this work as a health promoter in this project, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I would always talk about the environment. It's like why do I ride? It's because it's we need to do our part, and I would mention it was economical, but now I think over the last decade, people understand that. Like they associate riding and walking as healthy and good for their community. I don't even mention that anymore. When I'm talking about riding and why people ride, first thing I tell about is reliability. And I look at that picture of when the subway died like a couple of years ago. It happens all the time, right? There's shuttle buses and people pour out of the stations and they just start looking around and not knowing what to do. I don't want to be part of that. I started riding personally because when I was in grad school, I needed to get to downtown. I had a class to teach or I was had a class to take, and I know for a fact that if I left my house at 8, I'd get to campus by 9, like 100% of the time. I don't know how often you can say that about TTC, but I just knew it was all about reliability and independence. And then we have some really good research now that shows the city's own goals by 2050. I'm sure you guys are aware that Transform TO 75% of all trips are in Toronto should under 5 kilometers should be walked or biked. And the only way we're going to do that is by laying the groundwork down now, like 30 years before that. In Scarborough, some research from UT said 500,000 trips a day are 5 kilometers or less. So every one of those trips could have been walked or ridden. If you're thinking about practical wise, how long does it take to ride? You can bike 5 kilometers in about 20 minutes for an average person. I time myself all the time on my bike computer, on my phone, or whatever. It's usually spot on. It takes me about 5 kilometers to bike 5 kilometers and it only takes me 20 minutes. If I want to do 10 kilometers, it takes me 40 minutes. I live at the edge of Scarborough. To get to St. George or to get to the CN Tower, it's like 10 kilometers, and that's a 40-minute ride. So, and on top of all that stuff of why we ride, we are in a global pandemic. People are just uncomfortable riding in a crowded bus, and we've all seen those images. And many people have come to our bike club telling me right to my face that I'm riding my bike down because I don't want to be in a crowded bus. So we have many options. And like I said, before it used to be about environment and economics. Now it's just really about like independence and reliability. Those are the main factors that our people are telling me. So how do we do it? My first tip to you all is our program is we identify barriers. This is kind of like this model and an approach that we use based on social psychological behavior change that we tested and implemented as part of this report that's right there, Building Bike Culture Beyond Downtown, is released in 2019 by the Center for Active Transportation, which is one of our partners. And it basically shows like, we find the neighborhood, we address the barriers, we remove those barriers, and you keep hitting that repeat button and you keep cycling. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to get people to ride a bike or trying to get people to recycle more or stop smoking or quit smoking or, vacuum their room. You just got to address find that target population, may it be youth, newcomers, adults, women, whatever it is that target population, identify what's preventing them, remove those barriers, and then again keep hitting the repeat button and supporting it. And right now for our talk right now, I'm kind of like talking about like 3 and 4 here for later on slides. This is what I'm trying to do. So trying to we've identified those barriers. Now we're trying to remove them, whatever they might be, maybe education or knowledge transfer, and I'm going to try and support you by whatever those barriers are, just to keep hitting that repeat button and keep cycling. The next little tip is that what we do at Scarborough Cycles is we do a lot of partnerships. So whatever it may be is we have to form meaningful, actionable partnerships with basically everyone, from the City of Toronto to small unincorporated neighborhood groups to community centers to whatever, schools, BIAs. We have to know what they need and what they want and what they're trying to do and their goals, and we will work with them because we know for a fact that bicycle is one of the best community development tools that we have, and many organizations will have program objectives that could be met through cycling, but they just don't know it, and maybe that's one of their barriers, is some of that knowledge. So from the small to the large, we should be part of that discussion, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done at Access Lines and Scarborough Cycles in building that big tent and becoming the de facto expert in suburban cycling in Toronto. So just a quick rundown of some of the programs that we do. So we do a DIY drop-in bike repair. That was pre-pandemic. We removed the DIY part because we wanted to have infection protection and control, prevention and control. So now it's all small tune-ups and bike repairs and safety checks are done by staff. We removed that part. The DIY, now it's drop-in bike repair. Hopefully one day we can come back to the DIY because it was easily the most popular one of our programs. We run Scarborough's very only Earn Your Bike program and Earn Your Bike program for youth. Some images or program participants at our last bike giveaway and our Earn Your Bike program. Earn Your Bike program is like an 8-week program, and participants earn their bike through volunteerism, and they give back to the community. They volunteer up to 25 or more hours. That's the minimum. And usually they never just do the minimum. Usually they're up to 40, 75, or even 100 hours because they want to expand our network in our community. Yep, our Earn Your Bike. There are other Earn Your Bike programs in across the city, but we're just the only ones that are doing it in Scarborough. Of course, we do group rides. Group rides are important for three things. The first one is for bringing people together. That was our claim to fame prior to the pandemic. We're kind of doing it now a little bit more, but still not to the level that we did prior to our current situation. We bring people together. That's number one. Number two is skills training. Skill training is really important. I'll talk about that in a later slide. And number three, it's part of our advocacy. We do have advocacy goals. That is part of our work here. Um, uh, at the end of the day, we cannot cut the curbs. We cannot paint the roads. We cannot install the signals. We do all the soft things like the skills training, the building the community, building the bike culture, and we work with our city and provincial and federal partners to do the things that we can't do, and that is build and fund infrastructure. So advocacy is important. That's the number three thing of group rides. Part of the advocacy is, fighting Islamophobia with like our hijabs and helmets program, which we recently relaunched, and the feedback's been terrific, and I can answer any of those questions if you have any about that later. Of course, we do community events. People need to know what we're doing and how we do it, and knowledge mobilization in the community is really important. We're at farmers markets all across the city, all across Scarborough, even in other parts of the city. And this is like a program that easily outstrips our capabilities. Demand outstrips our capabilities because, if you've noticed that in the last year and a half, a lot more people are riding and pulling out those old bikes from garages and sheds and trying to get them working again. And we're happy to help them do that at community events. It puts us on the ground in the community, within reach of all our neighborhoods. We do workshops, of course. Some of the stuff was pivot stuff that we had to do because of the pandemic. It's an example of our neighborhood bike mechanic program there, where we loan all the stuff that are needed to teach people to fix their bike, and we do a condensed Earn Your Bike program. There it is. We're doing it. Resident engagement, all sorts of research projects, small things, taking in university students, taking in college students, mentoring. That's all part of the work that we do here. Talked about their neighborhood bike mechanic program. We're really proud of it. That's me at the top teaching at our Lawrence Orne Bike Hub. And the purpose of that program, it really is to, we thought about how can we get more people fixing bikes that cannot come because of lockdowns or whatever. So let's just bring it to them and teach them online and show them how to do it. And there's an example of a family working on other people's bikes that they would leave at the side of their house and then, let it sit for 48 hours to make sure that it was safe. And then they would work on it and leave it there for pickup. So that's a great story that's happening in Scarborough in our Woburn community near our Lawrence Orne Bike Hub. Okay, so now you have an idea of what we do. So this is kind of like the teaching kind of suburban stuff that I was talking about, and some of the questions that we're curious about. So riding in the suburbs. There's a picture of a bike lane on Shepherd Avenue East. First thing that we should know is that the Highway Traffic Act is what governs the road rules in Ontario, and bikes are vehicles. So that's really important, and you have the same rights and responsibilities of motor vehicles. There should be another thing that caveat there is municipal bylaws also regulate the use of bicycles. Right, so there's actually two things. It's the Highway Traffic Act and municipal governments can post other additional prohibitions and allowments and things like that. So bikes you're allowed to ride on any public road. They are prohibited on expressways or highways, so any 400 series highways or any other expressways like the Don Valley or Don Valley or the Gardner Expressway. Don Valley Parkway. There's mandatory helmet laws for people 17 age or under. And what basically that means in the Highway Traffic Act, you basically have to ride 1 meter from the right curb. And you don't want to ride in the gutter because that's where the hazards are and that's where you get flat tires and that's where all the debris is in there. You want to be riding about 1 meter from the right curb or 1 meter from that parked car so you don't get hurt if someone does not check over their left shoulder by opening that door. Bikes are usually the slowest moving vehicles on the road, and therefore you have to go as far as safe and practical. So we consider that to be 1 meter right from the curb. So mention some of those other Toronto bylaws. So municipal bylaws can also regulate the use of bicycles. You want to avoid riding on the sidewalk because riding on a sidewalk, there is no code of conduct. The City of Toronto allows youth 13 years of age and under to ride on the sidewalk, and then 14 and above have to be not on the sidewalk, so they should be on the roadway. So like I mentioned earlier, there is no code of conduct on the sidewalk like there is on the road where we have the Highway Traffic Act. So what I mean by that is, like, if you were walking on the side, like if you're riding on the sidewalk, and there's no rules, meaning no one was expected, like if you're on the sidewalk, people expect you to be walking, and motorists expect that people that are on the sidewalk are moving at walking pace. So it's not meant for a bicycle. And if you, that's like an example of a City of Toronto bylaw. And there's other bylaws that are different. So that's what kind of makes it a little bit cloudy. So in other municipalities, in other jurisdictions, they have different sidewalk rules. Some of them are related to the size of the wheel of the bike, and some of them are also related to the age of the cyclist. So generally, we say avoid riding on the sidewalks as best you can. If you feel unsafe, if you find yourself on an arterial road in Scarborough, like any arterial road that crosses the 401, Kennedy, Warden, McCowan, Markham Road, those are definitely higher higher traffic numbers. They're wider, they're faster. I wouldn't I wouldn't recommend riding that on those types of arterials unless you are a very seasoned and experienced cyclist. So, but if you do find yourself, it's happened to everyone. You make a right turn, you make a left turn, you find yourself there. If you feel unsafe, get off your bike and walk your bike. If you find yourself riding on the sidewalk for whatever reason, give pedestrians 100% full priority. Like you don't want to intimidate them. You want them to give them as much space. Get off, dismount, let them pass, or and then continue on your day. And then I also mentioned there are other bylaws. So these are relevant to kind of the work that we promote is when I'm talking about route planning in another slide, in a couple slides from now, you should be mindful that like some parks in Toronto, they do not allow you to ride in them. For example, near my house, there's Rosetta McLean Park. It's a garden, or Edward Gardens. You can ride your bike to it. You can probably walk your bike inside, but you cannot ride inside. That's an example right there of the Martin Goodman Trail. You can't ride on the boardwalk, but you're allowed to ride on the trail beside it. So just be mindful that that there are other city bylaws that are in addition to the Highway Traffic Act that govern the use of bicycles and where you can ride. So hopefully it doesn't happen, But if you do find yourself in a interaction with a driver or a motorist, the first thing that we teach at Scarborough Cycles is to de-escalate. Just do not raise the temperature of the situation. It's really important that we teach our volunteers and our ride mentors when they're on the road. It's really important because it's so easy we don't know what people are thinking in their cars. They could, the car is a completely isolated, not isolated, insulated vehicle. It's fully protected, and you're on the bike and you feel very, very vulnerable. So the last thing you want to do is escalate this situation. Just de-escalate. It's happened to me all the time. Uh, it happens all the time. A motorist will try to get your attention by laying on the horn, and I just kind of look over and just kind of just like, I don't have to talk to you. This is not my thing. And they start getting madder and angrier. Why aren't you talking to me? Why aren't you talking to me? So I just de-escalate, just keep on your way. So if you do find yourself in a crash, take a deep breath, go to a safe area as soon as possible. You will be in fight or flight mode. Your adrenaline will be elevated. Don't make any decisions there and there, like because of what's happened. You're gonna try to dust yourself off, and you'll be saying to yourself that you're okay. Um, Many times our participants have told us that after a crash, they feel that they're okay, and then the day after, 2 days after, they feel really sore, and they wish they could have handled the situation a little bit better by taking some information down. The driver's name, the license plate number, the license number. Asking for any help or asking for any witnesses and getting their information, because you don't know what you're going to feel like, 48 hours from now or 24 hours from now. You just, like I said, you've got your blood pressure pumping and your adrenaline's running and is elevated, and you're thinking you're okay, and you're trying to assess the best you can, and you want to be on your way. You might feel embarrassed, you might feel um, uneasy, but take a deep breath, put yourself in a safe position on the street, and look for witnesses and ask for help. And if whatever happens, and if you still can't get up or whatever, of course you're going to need to call the emergency services for help. Okay, so this is kind of like the key slide. If we're going to listen to something that is relevant to suburban planning, this is where you need to do your homework, and it's really route planning. So when it comes to suburban cycling, uh, the key thing is the way you drive to your destination is probably not the best way to ride or walk to your destination. Suburbs are weird because wayfinding could be a little bit different. It's not like downtown where there's like a strong grid pattern, and you could take a right and just follow a street, and that street's going to be still there. A few blocks. Wayfinding is a little bit different too. Like you can look up and see the CN Tower, and you know where south is, right? In suburbs, we don't have those wayfinding points and those monuments. They're a little bit harder. So this is what I love about suburban cycling, because I love exploring. I love what makes riding in the suburbs actually very enjoyable. I love exploring new neighborhoods, new communities, finding those little corners of parks and parklets and businesses and all the cool public places that are in the city that you've never heard of, and I'm still learning. Like there's so many parks and green spaces and schoolyards and things that I come across that I never knew existed, and I never knew could connect me to where my destination is. So wayfinding is a very challenging thing. So like I said, there's not like in the downtown where no grid exists, um, and it's bigger, it's faster, but doesn't mean that it can't be done. So there are suburban shortcuts, what I like to call shortcuts. The obvious stuff is like parks, green spaces. Toronto has a terrific ravine system, so using those trails, even though they kind of like dump you out into the middle of arterial roads. So the key is to figure out where not to be dumped out in those arterial roads. That's very important. So green spaces, schools are schoolyards. You can easily cut across a half of a suburban city block or a half of a community or a neighborhood by using a schoolyard. Parking lots, believe it or not, are also a little trick. You can get across huge sections of Eglinton or Kennedy or Brimley on by not even riding on the sidewalk, by just zigzagging your way through parking lots. Not so much in Scarborough, but laneways. There are also laneways that you can also use. That's always a great trick downtown, and it is possible also in suburban settings. Cemeteries, there might be bylaws that prevent you from riding there, but um, uh, probably not. There's some great ones downtown, obviously, and in Scarborough too. There's some large cemeteries that allow cycling to happen, and you can, like I mentioned, cross huge blocks of 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 roads just by taking an easy stroll through a cemetery. And of course, neighborhoods. This is where it all comes down to, is like discovering and finding new places and new neat things to connect your daily route is neighborhoods, and those are slow, quiet streets, and we all know what they look like. And a lot of neighborhoods are actually have, like, different catwalks to connect, like cul-de-sacs. And I know the city of Toronto has been putting together uh, these new no exit except for pedestrians kind of signs. It'd be nice if they put also except for bicyclists kind of signs. That would be really cool too. And you got to double check your route. So, use all the kind of important things that we all know, like Google Maps. Google Maps is getting better all the time. I remember when they first started putting that little cycling tab on your way, and it would be completely wacky. But I guess, being the large transnational corporation that they are, they've gathered so much data and see where people are doing, and they've been updating their algorithms, and it's pretty good. But it's still not the best. There's still not the amount of local knowledge that you will learn by doing that route yourself. Um, it still misses, all weird parking lots, weird schoolyards, um, little cut throughs that are unofficial, that'll never find its way on a bike map, that'll never find its way on a Google map, but exist and it's there. So yeah, double check your route with apps. There's all popular ones are like Strava, like kind of social networking kind of uh, apps. Ride with GPS is another one. Trail Forks is another one. Um, and be mindful that you might actually be no perfect option here. I'm not saying to ride across Scarborough is completely not possible without hitting an arterial road or a medium-sized arterial road. There probably will be some arterial road riding. The key is try to minimize it as best you can. Give yourself a chance to discover new communities and new neighborhoods. Uh, but it is possible. Like, I've worked with so many. I'm talking to hundreds. Like, this job has given me the privileged opportunity to talk to literally hundreds of people who are new to cycling in Scarborough, and I hear what they tell me about all the little tricks and tips and little things that are interesting in their neighborhood that they discovered, and how to get around. And with that, just like, feel free to connect with any of the CRP bike hubs. I know last week Ed was here from Gateway, but there was another. The staff there they know the local topography, the local geography. They know um, the businesses. They know, they ride there continuously. So please reach out to them, because they have accurate and local knowledge that will surely connect you with a wider audience and networks of everyday people who are just like you, who are trying to get around and facing the same barriers and challenges in cycling in the neighborhood. So, talk about equipment. So you need to be heard. The bell, the helmet, lights, all that kind of stuff is really important. Uh, I I put up these Google search images. That's all that is, just Google search images of what happens when you hit bell and helmet and lights. And I put it on there per purpose, because the reason why I put it there is there's so many kinds, right? Just like any free market capitalist society. Um, 20 years ago, I can guarantee there was probably not as many types of lights, many types of uh, bike bags, and many types of helmets. Now you can get any helmet at any price point, any style, any color, to suit your character, your own personality. If you're a recreational rider, or if you want to be understated, um, it's available. So, like, this is part of the knowledge kind of education thing that we tell people, that cycling is not cis male gendered, and it's not just for recreational cyclists. You don't have to look like a superhero in black spandex. You can ride in whatever that you want to ride, wearing the colors that you want to like wear, and even bikes too. Bikes is also have the types of bikes that are available, and things that are specific to women, things that are specific to people who are shorter, people who are larger. The bike industry has catered to so much. For sure, 20 to 30 years ago, there was not as many models of bikes and lines of bikes and types of helmets and types of accessories and equipment. Nowadays, you can get anything, any price point, from custom bells that are engraved to anything like $2 bells at the dollar store to literally a $300 bell that's more akin to jewelry. And same with helmets. You know, as long as it's certified by a safety regulatory, it's safe to ride, to use and wear. And there's so many types. There's helmets that fold. There's helmets that you know, that are lit. There's it's accessories. So that's something that you can get, and it's not expensive. Like I said, like from price points from the very affordable to budget to very expensive. There's something for everyone. And then when you start riding, the first thing that I'll tell people is ride what you have. You know, don't let equipment be your barrier, because it shouldn't be a barrier. These things are, aside from the safety stuff like the bell, helmets, and lights, they are important and you should have them. But they're also non-mandatory equipment, like having a bike rack and having the bike bag. So if you don't have a bike rack and you're interested in learning about it, then reach out to the bike hubs. They can help you. But if it's time for you to get away from using your backpack, and we usually tell people not to use a backpack because it kind of gets really hot and heavy on your back, and you can't carry as much stuff. So so with that, you want to get a rack, and I have an example of like just a cheap rack here. So it just looks like this, and it attaches to your bike through a variety of of brackets, and then you have a bag. And I'll just show you a quick bag. And if you've never seen one of these, so the bag doesn't tie on, but actually clips on. So like your bag will have these little clips, and then it kind of just like attaches on there really easy. So then it's like it stays on there and it's really tight. So yeah, so even bags, like I mentioned about like helmets and locks, and or not even talk about locks, but helmets and lights. There's a wide range of stuff. So you can get like bags that look like your typical gym duffel bag and that's waterproof and stuff. And, or you can get stuff that are, you know, more kind of like, kind of looks like a women's diaper bag, or women's diaper bag, child's diaper bag. So, you know, has this, and then has like a little, you know, a little flap to attach your rack to. So I know I've spoken to people who upgraded from their disconnected, and they found exactly what they wanted. The styles are important, and some people, they don't want to look like that, or they want to find something that more uh, resonates with their own personal style. So those are also an option, and they're not expensive. So you know, you could be outfitted for $20 or less, or you can be outfitted for like $200. So it really is up to you. The key is that to know that this stuff exists, and there's a huge market out there to help you with it. So just a few more slides for resources and support. The City of Toronto, we are a bicycle repair hub for the Community Reduce and Reuse program. The other two partners that we have are Gateway Bicycle Repair Hub. That's its location near Overley and Don Mills, serving the Flemington and Thorncliffe neighborhoods. And Tobermory Bicycle Repair Hub at 15 Tobermory, which is closest intersection is Jane and Finch. And there are other organizations and other nonprofits and other smaller neighborhood groups that exist that you probably don't know about. If you're interested in connecting, reach out to me, because I can look it up quickly in the address book and see who you should be talking to. Obviously, Cycle Toronto. Cycle Toronto is the largest member-supported charity in Toronto. They are dedicated to and focused on advocacy, education, and growing that network. The same way that we all know that's really important for our work. There's also like CAN bike courses, and CAN bike courses is the only accredited program that teaches cycling safety and education and riding safety. The city does offer those courses. Last I checked, that they're still currently suspended. I know in the past, in previous years, sometimes they would offer them for free for Scarborough residents and other residents in other neighborhood improvement areas. So that's another thing to look up. There are other ways to register for a CAN bike course. I highly recommend doing some formal training if you are starting off and you want to do. I'm not saying you have to do it first and then start commuting, but eventually you will get there, because riding a bike in the city is a skill that is learned. The way you rode your bike when you were a kid, and the common story is, oh, I rode my bike until I was about 13 or 14. I wasn't allowed to ride on a sidewalk anymore. Then I got my license. I forgot about my bike. It's too small for me. Now I don't do it. I ride transit, but now I want to get back into it. So yeah, you can get back into it, of course. Connect though. There are resources and support that's available for you. Help us help you. It really is that Jerry Maguire thing. Let me know, and let me connect you to where you need it to be connected, whatever part of the city that you are in. And it's really important because riding a bike in the city is a learned skill. The same way you need mentorship and support and coaching, that really is helpful. In the same manner, you wouldn't, teach someone to ride a horse or jet ski or do ballet or something. Like, whatever it is, it's a skill you learn, and coaching really really matters. If you're downhill skiing, or if you're riding or learning to skate on ice skate, it's coaching will definitely help you. And of course, there's also a larger network that we're plugged into, like the Toronto Community Bike Collectives. They have a website too, and I hope we can share that stuff in the chat. It's just a network of all the community bike hubs that are working in the city of Toronto. And then I got to mention before I end, I have to acknowledge our funders. We are a community reduce and reuse program in partnership with Solid Waste Management Services at the City of Toronto. Our other partners, Toronto Community Housing at our Lawrence and Oran Bike Hub. They've been terrific partners, and obviously the MLC Foundation, our newest funder for our Hijabs and Helmets program. And that is my last slide. Kim, has my contact information, and we can make sure that you get that information too. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you so much, Marvin. Wow, what a great presentation. And we'll for sure circulate Marvin's contact information and ways to get in touch with Scarborough Cycles in the follow-up email we'll send out after this webinar, along with the recording.
Yeah, thank you, Kim.
So yeah, thanks. So I encourage all the attendees to take advantage of the question and answer panel on the right-hand side of your screens. Marvin has generously offered to answer any questions you may have. So please enter your questions and we'll articulate them to Marvin. But Marvin, from your experience working in the suburbs in Scarborough, can you provide any insights on the main levers of cycling safety in suburban areas of Toronto?
Sure. Of course. The main levers. I've been privileged, like I mentioned, to be able to speak to hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are like in the last 7 years of this project, 7 years of program that we've been programming out of Scarborough Cycles. And the number one concern is safety. That's all it is. That's all it comes down to. My Groundhog Day conversation is, Marvin, thanks for fixing my bike. I want to do more. I ride to school and I want to get to my dentist appointment across the street, across the city, but I can't because I feel unsafe. That's it. That's the same conversation I have. I want to do it. Yeah, I want to ride with my kids to school, but we have to cross, McCowan Road. How do we do it? Or we have to cross the 401. The 401 is like a major imaginary and physical barrier. in the city of Toronto. It really divides Toronto north and south. Um, right now, there's only one signed piece of infrastructure that crosses the 401, and it's in Scarborough, believe it or not. So if you get out the Toronto City bike map and then look at the 401 and look for signed infrastructure, there's only one place that you can cross the 401. And it's on Collins Road in Scarborough. So safety is the number one lever. If we can address safety, um, uh, it makes my work so much easier as a health promoter. People will gravitate. It's just so much easier.
Do you think that has anything to do with more people, more cyclists on the road? Do you think that would help? Like, I'm trying to appeal to maybe our downtowners on the call or folks that live in the more dense areas. Like, would you like to see more cyclists on the road in Scarborough? Do you think that would
Yeah,
help?
yeah, of course there would be. There's safety in numbers, that's for sure. That's actually been proven in a few um, important studies in the last couple of decades. Where there's more people, people will see that it is safe. So it's kind of like reflective. Like I see people riding, I see people like myself riding, then that means that something's happening here, that there's something that I can do. Um, Definitely. Some parts of downtown have uh, really high cycling mode share. Like they rival some European cities. So some places downtown in the core, there's like 30 to 40% of household trips are done by bike. So that's not an issue. The issue is when the roads get a little bit wider, the roads have overcapacity. I can name 10 roads right now in Scarborough that are underutilized in terms of capacity. Even if we took away one lane or half of that lane for a wider sidewalk and some some cycling infrastructure, even if it was just bollards, not even cement, the road would not change. It would look exactly the same. Travel times would not change at all, and more people would ride. So yeah, safety is the number one thing, and more people riding is always a good thing.
Yeah, thanks. And in
Sure.
your presentation, you mentioned that cyclists should ride 1 meter from the curb. What suggestions do you have for cyclists to ensure they have enough space from the curb and other road users? There's not often that, but not always that amount of space. 1 meter is pretty big.
1 meter is pretty big. Uh, like the word here is practical, in all practicalness. Like you have to take your own safety, um, like whatever you feel comfortable with. Uh, for myself, there's many times where I felt uneasy, like riding on a faster arterial road, and you've had a few rather close passes, and you kind of just, I feel like, and the road is not the perfect, it's not, it's the road condition is not good. There's potholes, there's gravel. You literally just have to just get off the road and start walking. That's not ideal, but you kind of have to, I really like our safety is what matters. Like at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell one of our participants who got to a bike hop, how'd you get here? Oh, I rode down McCowan Road. On the road? No, I rode on the sidewalk. Well, I'm not going to admonish him or her for doing that because um, they did it and they're here and they're safe and they're in one piece. But I will tell them, hey, make sure when you're riding on a sidewalk, you do know that it's not allowed. We give them that information. You do know that it's not permitted. But if you do come across a pedestrian walking, you're going to pass them, just give them as much space as you can, dismount and give them the space, because you don't want that interaction, also that negative interaction there too.
Yeah. We received a follow-up question to what you've just said, Marvin.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, we're asking, someone says, um, I am new to Toronto. Is there a bylaw to support that 1 meter distance from the curb, or is it a recommendation? That is there a bylaw supporting drivers give cyclists 1 meter?
Yeah, there is a bylaw. It's not even a bylaw. It's a provincial law that motorists have to pass us with a minimum of 1 meter on that left side. Um, I know in some jurisdictions they actively enforce that. There's even uh, police officers riding on bikes that have a tool that measures the distance from that handlebar end, that how close that driver has come. It's been shared on social media through other police departments in social in Southern Ontario. So it exists, and that is something that I wish that was more enforced because it would reduce that. Well, obviously, it would increase safety for it would increase the ability for people to know that if something happened like that, that there is some sort of recourse. I'm not sure how much recourse would happen right there and then it happens, but the driver education piece would be really helpful to let people know that this is something that there's vulnerable road users that are affected by the way you drive and operate your car, and you should be passing them with a 1 meter to get around them safely.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the presentation, but can bike training is an option for cyclists to be more aware of the road rules, and that's like a certification that people can get, right?
Yeah, yeah. So there's lots of CAN bike courses. There's from like learn to ride, riding with your families. There's riding in traffic, um, commuting. Check out the website. We'll share that information. Um, and there's also I also just realized there was a really good um, public education video on YouTube put out by another province about riding in traffic. I'm going to make sure I share that with you because it's really good. It's really, short, sweet, and it was funny, and it got the message across. So I'll make sure I share that with you.
That's great, and I'll when I get a moment, I'll link the CAN bike information in the chat too.
Thank you.
So we received a question: would expanding and improving the city's bike share program into and throughout Scarborough help increase ridership, visibility, and safety for cyclists here?
So the question one more time. So would it help if we expanded the
Yeah.
network?
So instead of personal ownership of the bike shares, would having more bike share docking stations and more bike share presence, and Bike Share Toronto is the shared bicycle system that no one owns the bikes, but you rent them, you borrow them for either half an hour,
Right,
45 minutes. So
right.
yeah, like do you want to see more of this in Scarborough and the suburban areas of the city?
Right. So there's two parts to that question, two answers. I mean, the answer is yes. Of course, we do want to see that. It's really important that in addressing equity across our neighborhoods, across the city, that happens. Um, because it's certainly weird. Like if like what I'm trying to say is like um, for people who travel downtown and who live in Scarborough or live in Etobicoke or live in North York, and they see all this infrastructure and they see the bike share and people using it. And then they go back to their own communities and they wonder how come we don't have that. It's that simple, right? Um, it, it's an issue for equity. Sure, we can. Yes, we need to expand that. I know Bike Share Toronto has been working hard to expand it into Scarborough. There's some pilots that have been done in Scarborough. Yes, those are really important. The other half of that is also the programming piece. It won't be enough. There's some really good examples of, bike share has been linked to gentrification in the US and some sort of studies in large American cities, and how communities have revolted and not accepted it, and just thought it was like a downtown elitist thing that's coming. It sounds kind of wacky, but like put yourself in a neighborhood that's disenfranchised, and all of a sudden you see a bike share dock. How am I going to use this dock when there's no infrastructure? Or if there's barriers to that infrastructure, like barriers to that usage? You need a credit card, you need to internet access. So there are ways to make it happen. I know in other cities, they've used bike share as an affordable pass to like free passes for people who are on supported incomes. There are other ways to do it, and also the programming piece is to show people that like bike share in Scarborough is for utilitarian cycling, is for everyday riding. It's not just for recreational. Sure, it could be done for that, but the key usage and the key message of is how you can make this more useful for your everyday lives and improve your lives, to save money on transit, to improve your community and personal health. Those are what the messages that we have to let people know of. And also the last piece is like the e-bikes. Um, it's a huge thing, and they're just scratching the very surface of it in North America. Um, the technology is terrific now. Like 5 years ago, it wasn't that good. Now it's even better. Battery technology is even better. The bikes are even better. There's an e-bike pilot for Toronto Bike Share. It's so hard to find the bikes. I've actually only seen it like once or twice, and I can't find them because they're always charging somewhere. But that is also an option for suburban riding. Key to unlock your commutes is e-bikes. You can cover so much more distance, so much faster. Uh, they are expensive. Um, the better ones start at about $3,500 and up, and they can go straight up to like $15,000. They're really car replacements at that point. And they're terrific. Like the thing with e-bikes, I have one and I use it. Um, and you when you're tired, you're riding 20 kilometers an hour. When you're going uphill, you're riding 20 kilometers an hour. When it's cold and hot, you're riding 20 kilometers an hour. When you're carrying a whole bunch of things, you're riding 20 kilometers an hour. So it's just like a way to level the playing field. If you can afford it, they are expensive, but bike share is part of that solution, please, for sure.
Ooh, good answer. And I love that you talked about e-micro mobility, e-bikes. I do think that it they bridge the gap between those long distance, the physicality of those commutes, or maybe
Right.
just the amount of weight you're carrying. So thanks for mentioning that.
I did mention
Um,
it. I did talk to like some people about like some friends and personal family about like and the after using it, like I'd loan them mine or whatever, they would be like, why did it wait so long? It's like what happened? Where was this technology? I wish this was around when I was like, it's that good. It's so easy. It's easy to ride. They are the province is figuring out the legalities and the laws about it right now. But just look around. Just like e-bikes are everywhere, and like it's part of the solution for sure.
Definitely. Um, in terms of safety and something that really came up throughout your presentation was trip planning and wayfinding. Um, you mentioned it takes you about 40 minutes to cycle 10 kilometers. You also mentioned a number of apps, Ride with GPS, Trailforks, Google Maps, Strava. Do you have any suggestions for tools that people can track their time and distance of their bike rides? And I'm also curious, what apps do you use day to day to
Oh,
track?
okay. Um, I I use all of them. It depends on what I'm doing. Because I find like none of them work exactly what I want, but any of those apps will do fine. There's probably hundreds of apps that could track you if you tell them you want them to track you. Recreate like your watch. It goes on and on. There's so many big players like Apple, Garmin. There's so many. So uh, I would suggest like some of the better mainstream companies like Garmin. They have an app that you can use for your phone or a cycling computer. It works via GPS. There's no wires to wrap around your bike or anything. Yeah, they all work fine. But I coming back to that 20 minute, it really is. It feels like it's on the money all the time. Like if I want to move 5 kilometers in Toronto, in Scarborough, it's even less because the distances are a little bit greater and you're finding your own different ways. Like I said, through all those shortcuts, it's even less. So you can actually do it. And it is possible. Like my main message at the end of here when I do these kind of talks is to give it a try. Just do it. Like whatever it takes. Like I could be very persuasive because I'm a health promoter, but try. Just give like you don't have to do it every day. Just try on like that light Friday after work during now. Um, see how it feels, get an idea of what your route is. Your route planning is going to change. You're going to make some alterations because as you learn more and you gain more insight and education and you're knowing your own capabilities, just give it a try. No one's going to say you're going to ride every day for the rest of your life. If you ride once a day, once a week, and then becomes twice a week, and then it becomes maybe just summer months, and then also becomes fall and summer. That's how you make those steps. Those little bitty steps is what's going to improve your health. As long as you incorporate it into your everyday. That's what really is. That's the difference between your heart health now and the work that you do now is will pay off like 10 years from now for your cardiovascular health. Like, that's how it is. Like, you're setting yourself up now for your 50s and 60s. If you're 20, you're setting yourself up for your 30s and 40s. So little bits and little change, and you can get there. You can get there for sure.
Thanks, Marvin. We've got one final question in the chat that we'll take because we are running out of time here.
Okay.
But this one's about cycling advocacy. So this person mentions that they do a hybrid, riding in North Scarborough, they do a hybrid approach of sidewalks and road cycling depending on route, traffic conditions, and time of day. This person mentions they know bike lanes are a source of contention in Scarborough, North Scarborough in particular. For instance, the removal of Pharmacy Avenue bike lanes a few years ago. What else can North Scarborough do in terms of cycling advocacy?
What else? Well, that's a big question. That's like a master's thesis. What can we do? Um, okay, so I'm gonna plug us. So connect with us first. Connect with other local organizations because we have our proverbial thumb on the pulse of what's happening in your community. Don't feel like there's nothing happening. There is something happening. I know it feels like the city moves at a glacial pace to build these things out. But I know the staff there are working hard as they can to implement these projects as fast as they can. So connect with us. What else can we do? Let your voices be heard. Connect with your trustee, your school trustee. Connect with your counselor because unlocking potential starts with youth. Because a young cyclist is a lifelong cyclist in my eyes. Let them know what your barriers are. Let them know what you are facing, and tell the everyday story of your experience of riding in Scarborough. It's so easy for advocates to get stuck on the technocracy of bike lanes. Oh, this lane is this wide. This arterial road is 30 meters wide. We can fit this much, this much, this much. You're actually not a planning technician. I'm not a planning technician. You're no one like Kim. No one's a planning technician here. There's someone at City Hall that can figure that out. Like you just gotta let them your elected officials know your story, how your dreams, your community's dreams, your neighborhood's dreams, your family's dreams, what you want your neighborhood and community to be. That's your deal. The second that you start talking about trip mode share, cycling mode share, number of traffic, how much time is saved by removing this bike lane, taking in this bike lane, it's all moot at that point. You've already lost that conversation because you're not a planning tech, you're not an engineer. Your voice matters. You're an everyday cyclist. You're an everyday person riding a bike. You just got to let them know I feel unsafe. How do I make this better? This is my route. This is how I connect. This is what I want to do. Please make this happen. That's my usually my pep talk to advocates who are kind of working this role. Just let us know your story. Let the technicians figure it out. Um, let your elected officials know, and we'll go from there because it's really hard. You get into the weeds really fast when you start talking about cycling mode share and trip time and all that kind of stuff. Just say it takes me too long. I want to pick up my kids for the library and go to school, and that's what I want to do. How come I can't do it? Why can other neighborhoods do it and we can't do it? I'm sorry, there's a little bit of philosophical question there, but
No,
it was a master's thesis. But yeah.
that was great. But maybe for any academics out there who want to take on a project, it sounds like more work can be done in that field. And I love that you focused on the individual and the power we can have as one and a community as well. But we are stewards of our community, and everyone must tell their stories and make their stories known. So thank you. That was a beautiful answer. So this concludes our workshop today. On behalf of the City of Toronto, I'd like to thank Marvin Macaraig and Scarborough Cycles and Access Alliance for taking the time to do this webinar today. As Marvin mentioned in his presentation, Scarborough Cycles is one of 3 community reduce and reuse programs that the City of Toronto's Solid Waste Management Services supports. The reduce and reuse programs are not just limited to bike hubs. There are hubs focused on sewing and mending, gardening, composting, and general repair. So if you're looking to get involved in the community, just going to put it in the Q&As here. Do check them out and the amazing work that they're doing. So again, that's the community reduce and reuse programs. So I'd also like to thank my colleagues, Jessica Chow and Adam Tesfaye, for putting this all together today. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you, our attendees, for joining us today. Wishing you all safe commutes, and remember to stay hydrated out there. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.